So we're going to start with a very fundamental treatise of the Beis Halevi, Rabbi Yosef Dov Ber Soloveitchik of the great Brisker dynasty, in his commentary on Parshas Tisa. And he says the following. He says, what happens when a Jew does a mitzvah? What happens when a man in the morning puts on tefillin? What happens when a woman on Erev Shabbos separates challah and takes a little to the side and burns it and does a positive mitzvah? What happens when you give a few dollars to a poor person and give them tzedakah? Whatever the mitzvah is. So, as much as we may not realize it, but as every bracha that we make on mitzvahs, Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvaysav, Hashem sanctified us with these mitzvahs. Meaning to say that every mitzvah is a powerhouse. Every mitzvah is not just some rules to keep you in order. How can I control the Jews that they don't get in trouble? How can I make sure the Jews are good people? Now, certainly that is a benefit that comes out of it. We're not saying it's not a benefit, and it's certainly if people follow laws and order, you get law and order. But that is very little compared to what really is happening over here. Every time we do a mitzvah, on a mystical level, it sets off all kinds of amazing fireworks in the spiritual realms. First of all, it does something to you. Every time you do a mitzvah, there's something spiritually beneficial that's happening to you and to your neshama and to your soul. And it's putting you in a very special place. It creates a whole aura of spirituality around you. And also it sends off incredibly powerful spiritual energies throughout the different spiritual spheres of existence, makes great corrections to the world. You know, you're going to see now the next month all the roads are going to be repaired now, because we're coming out of winter, so going to the next season called construction. And everyone's being stressed. So every time you do a mitzvah, it's like your mamish paving certain avenues to Shemayim. Your mamish creating unbelievably great spiritual realities. And as much as you may not see it, these things are happening without question. They're incredible tools to make the person and the world a great place. You're taking the physical world by taking a citron and a palm tree and shaking it. You are setting off spiritual dynamics that are beyond what your comprehension can imagine. That's amazing. That's amazing. So now the Beis Halevi poses the following question. What would happen if a person in a very generously spirited mood would decide with his own intellect, with his own esoteric understandings of the Kabbalah and the roots of creation, and let's say he really knew everything, going to the deepest roots of creation, and he says, and let's say God never commanded us to make a temple. Let's say God never commanded us to make, it's not in the 613. And the guy decides one day to build a tabernacle. Right? And he's able to produce the exact tabernacle that God wrote in the Torah. But the thing is, God never wrote it. So what would happen? He would spend a year building the tabernacle, and he happened to know all the rules. Let's just theoretically say God never, the 5 parshas at the end of the Torah, he didn't write them. There's no such thing as making a tabernacle. The guy was a genius. He came with the idea of making a tabernacle. It was exactly what God would have said. Okay? Now what would happen at the end? Now we know what happens at the end in 2 weeks' parsha. What's going to happen is it gets finished and God's presence comes into the tabernacle as we described a couple of weeks ago. That's what happened. What happens to the guy who comes on it on his own? What will happen? The answer is absolutely nothing. Nothing. Nothing will happen. It is no different than standing on your head and spitting out wooden nickels. What would happen if you did that? Nothing would happen either. Now, the problem of the Jewish people had with the sin of the golden calf is that they were trying to figure out on their own to make some kind of a mishkan, so to speak. In other words, they understood that Moshe was their leader. They understood that God's intention was one day God will live with the Jewish people. His presence will dwell amongst us. Now their leader is gone. They're not going to know how that's going to ever happen now. The Medrash goes into great detail describing the images that the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, gave to the Jewish people. That you had these voice saying to them, where's your leader? Oh, he's coming back. He says he's not here, but he'll be back. And then he shows them a very graphic vision of Moshe lying dead on a bed. And they said, he's dead. He's not coming back. It was very believable. So they think he was dead. And the people knew, we need to have something to connect us to Hashem. And they knew they weren't smart enough to do it on their own. So they went to Aaron, who was a holy man. They give him their gold. And they figure, Aaron, you know mysticism. And you go and make something. We don't know what it is. They don't know exactly what's going to be. But you make something, a holy man. You know, you can stand tall, and you can do and make us something spiritual to connect us to Hashem. So says the Beis Halevi. Now we're going to pick up source 8. However, they made a mistake. It is true that the actions of man in the lower world causes corrections and good order in all the worlds. For so has God decreed that the worlds will be led by the actions of man in this world. In other words, God did make the world that what we do makes a difference. And it sets off spiritual fireworks. That's for sure true. But here's the problem. It's only true if the Torah commands you to do it. One little catch. God has to tell you that this is what he wants you to do. In other words, the rules of spirituality are such is that the creator of the universe, who made all the different spiritual worlds, he knows exactly what has to happen to set off the fireworks the way they're meant to work. What makes the system work so beautifully and what gets corrected is by the definition of the things that you have to do, that God tells you to do, that he's set up. So now, if God in the Torah tells you to do it, what makes something a mitzvah? Only if God says to do it. If God says take a citron, then the citron, when you shake it on the 7th day, on any day of Sukkot, sets off spiritual realities that you cannot by just taking a lemon. It's got to be exactly the way God defines it to work. All these physical things only work because God says they work in this way, even though you don't understand how it works. Once a person makes a mistake and says, you know what, I can also define what spirituality is. You know what, I think there's a lot of nice things that can be done too, and are wonderful things, and I'm going to come up with a few good ideas of my own. So that might be very nice thought, but it's no different than idol worship. Because that's really what idol worship is. You deifying what you think is the right thing to do. Once a person deifies his own intellect and assumes that he can change this activity, charge this activity with spirituality, he's making a big mistake. And that's what he says. He continues and says, or is he? But if a person does any action that is not commanded by the Torah, but does it from his own intellect, then the particular action will accomplish nothing. For an action does not intrinsically affect the divine presence to descend upon them. That doesn't do it. Hold on. The primary correction in all actions is that you are doing the will of Hashem. It's the will of Hashem is what puts the power into all mitzvahs. It's his will. It says, my will, that same will that created the world. It's the same will that has everything happen in this world. So Hashem says, my will, if you do my will with these mitzvahs, you will partner in my spiritual power. I will give you my power. And my power only comes with this specific action, under these specific conditions, and under no other way. So this is the power that's there. That's their share kiddushan b'mitzvah. He sanctified us with the mitzvahs. That particular physical action, if anybody else tells you to do it, it's worthless. But if Hashem tells you to do it, that's the miracle of mitzvahs. Kiner mitzvah, the Torah or. A mitzvah is like a candle, and the Torah is like a fire. So the fire is the power. Hashem lets you take the power of the fire and he puts it into the mitzvahs, and that's what it accomplishes. What does fire do? Fire changes mass into energy. A mitzvah is changing mass into energy. The mass of this esrog turns into a spiritual energy. That's why the analogy of fire. That's what fire is, changes mass into energy. If you want to change mass into spiritual energy, you're going to be told exactly what the rules of spiritual combustion are to make that happen. But that only, so who defines reality? as the Meshech Chochmah, the ninth source, says, there's only one definition of reality, and that's Torah. Torah, well, I'll get to you. Torah is the only definition of reality. You want to know what's real? The Torah is real, because it's God's will, and that makes it real. So if the Torah says to do something, and that's God's will, then that's real, and that can accomplish all kinds of things. Anything else is not going to be able to accomplish that. You had a question, I'm sorry?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Cain and Abel, I mean, Cain came up with the idea to give an offering to God, right? And God liked it.
Right, so that's a good question, and there's a number of questions that could be asked. How did Avram Avinu, we know Avram Avinu did Kol Torah Kula before God asked him. So before the Torah was given, certainly people could try to do things and try to intuit wonderful ideas. And God would tell them if they did something that made sense or not. That's fine. That's before God gives the Torah. But once God gives the Torah, he's saying, now there's no trial and error. This is it and nothing else. And it just so happens that the second commandment said, you shall not make any graven images. How do you like that? Too bad. You can't make any graven images. So I think the golden calf was a graven image. Right? So you ready? We're told not to make a graven image. But wait a minute. Now the question if they knew about the Mishkan or not, or what about the cherubic-like figures? Well, God could say don't make graven images, but God makes the rules and he makes exceptions to the rules. So I say you can make cherubim and they're not considered graven images. Okay, it's another talk for another time. But if God said you can't make graven images, you can't make graven images no matter what your intentions are. So this is such an important thing. Nothing is intrinsically holy unless God deems it so by his will, and we maintain that holiness by fulfilling his will. No one can say they're a spiritual person by doing things that they think are cool. They're not. It could be the most wonderful idea in the world, but it's not, I figure, I got a brand new laptop computer. It's so nice. It's so beautiful. I think I want to be really clean, so I'm going to put it in the bathtub and wash it up and scrub it up really good every day, so it'll be in the top shade. And I think that's. And look, my laptop is cleaner than yours. That's so filthy from the pizza you eat over it and this and that. And I make it look beautiful, clean. Then the guy's surprised. The next day, he says, "It's not working." Why not? You idiot! The manual told you don't put it in water, but it looks so much nicer in water. But you don't know how the machine works. So Hashem says, you know how this machine of Judaism works? It works by my will penetrating into the physical world, and you using the world the way I tell you to use it. That's what makes it work. But that's not fair. Well, when you make your world, you make your own rules. And that's a big problem. People are foolish enough to think they're smarter than God. God says, you know what? A golden calf doesn't do it. But we think it does. No, it doesn't. Right? Now, there's a lot of golden calves that we have to live with in our lives, where we would prefer to do it a certain way. And I like it. God always does it the way that you would not prefer to do it. Right? Every single time. He does that way. Right? Can't talk Lashon Hara. But what about him? He's such a terrible guy. You didn't mean, no, you got to go Lashon anybody. No, but he's a Russian. No, you still got that one. That's the way it works. Right? So now, that's one point. The next point is to realize that the mistake that the Jews made obviously was not a mistake of wickedness, but rather a mistake of greatness. If the Jewish people were a bunch of uncaring people who really didn't really care what their religion was going to be, they would have just sat there and say, well, he's not here. Okay, we'll wait around, we'll see what happens. It's a nice place, the man is coming down anyway. It's not a problem. But they really were excited about their religion. They wanted it, and they wanted to be close to Hashem. So therefore, what we would call this a mistake in greatness. A mistake saying we really want to be close to Hashem, and we understand what this is all about. We just can't wait for Moshe Rabbeinu. If he's not coming, we have to take charge and do something. So there was good intentions over there without a question. But the problem is, you have to understand that how could we be the ones to create those new realities? And a lot of times people have a lot of good ideas. But if you want to have a good idea, you better check it out with somebody first, shouldn't you? There have been great innovations in the Jewish world that stayed within the framework of Torah that are wonderful things. For example, when Rabbi Meir Shapiro decided almost 100 years ago that all Jewish men should try together to learn Daf Yomi, to learn a page of Talmud every day. That was an innovation, but it wasn't contrary to anything in the Torah. We have to learn Torah anyway, so figure a way. What would be a better way to get people to learn Torah properly? That's fine. But other things that are not prescribed, that are not printed through the Torah, you can't just come up with new ideas. And that's where the problems begin. Figure, you know what? Anyway, a great idea. If we didn't have a mechitza in shul, more people would come to davening. Now, you know what? You might even be right. But guess what? You've turned the shul into a church. Okay? And then nothing works in a church. There's a lot of Jewish churches around, but they're not shuls. When you take out the mechitza and you take out a lot of other things, you may feel better. And you may legitimately fear what is going to be left of the Jewish people. The people know you got to be together, you got to be this, and we'll bring in a rock group. We'll bring in, Paul McCartney, and he'll really be makar of lots of people. Imagine how people would come. Paul McCartney would be singing yesterday and today and tomorrow. Well, the place will be packed. Judah will be exciting. You know what? He's not Jewish, is he? Right? So it doesn't work with a non-Jew leading the service. One of the technical details, I'm sorry to tell you, right? But it'll be amazing. But it won't be Torah, and it won't be successful, and it'll be another golden calf. So that's the point he's saying. Okay, now, what brings people to make these kinds of mistakes? So now let's try to come back to the first two items over. Is everybody clear what the mistake was? Okay, we understand what the mistake was and how we have to deal with this all the time. Okay, now, so they really had great intentions. They didn't want to be idol worshippers. They didn't want to be idol worshippers in the conventional sense. They felt that they could be the source of spiritual energy. That was a mistake that they didn't know, so they were taught that mistake. Now, Rabbi Yerucham Levovitz, the old mashgiach of the Mir Yeshiva, he now makes a connection between the giving of the half-shekel coin and the sin of the golden calf. Let's come back to what it says. The rich man cannot give more. What's wrong with the rich man giving more? Well, what are one of the big pitfalls that a rich man, what kind of tests does a rich man have when he gets up in the morning? I mean, I'm not saying all rich men are like this, God forbid, but what kind of test would the Yetzer Hara try to get the rich man with? He'd probably say something like this. You'd say, I'm a wealthy man. I'm not on the same level as the people who are poorer than me. And I should be treated specially. That's not unusual. Rich people that fall to such a Yetzer Hara, they think when they call a school, the principal has to answer the next minute. There's certain rich people, they'll call 10 times until you call back because they demand to be responded to immediately because they're different than other people. There are some who have that test and fail that test. There's very nice rich people too. But that would be a test of a rich man. He has a lot of money. Money is power. I have power. I should have it. So what is the real pleasure, the incorrect pleasure that the Yetzer Hara would seduce the rich man or woman to want for? To dominate. To dominate. Right? He has wealth. He wants to dominate. And you find very often people with high-powered positions just happen to be wealthy people. Did you notice that? Who are the people that put presidents in office? It's not the poor people. It's the rich people who put them in office and then get plum positions in the cabinets, right? Wealth is power. And the rich generally have the challenge of wanting to do things to show they're different and more special than other people. And as evidenced by, wealthy people who have homes much larger than what they need. Way beyond what they need. I'm not talking you can't have a comfortable house, of course, but to have rooms for show. What is the show? To show they're better than everybody else. Right? That's all. So that's a big challenge. It's a challenge for the rich man to act like a regular person. It's a big challenge when they make weddings, when they make bar mitzvahs, what clothes they buy. Now, I'm not saying, rich men, if you want to be able to do things easier, why not? If you have a nicer car that doesn't break down as often. I understand. But ostentation is for the sake of everyone should know that I've got money. Right? That's a challenge. It's a challenge that a rich person has. So when it comes time to collect from the half-shekel coin, what might a rich person's Yetzer Hara say to him? You're going to give the half shekel coin like every other schlepper around? You're not going to be like everybody else. Here, put 1,000 shekels down. Ah, Mr. So-and-so, the coin will, when you come, you're going to get butt in front of the line. Because Mr. Son, can you imagine, it's a big lineup. Can you imagine the rich ones have to wait at the back of the line? Hey, there's 20 paupers in front of me. I don't wait for nobody. Excuse me, you take a number, please. But I have $1,000 to give. I don't have, no, you're giving a half shekel coin like everybody else. So that is why the Torah says the rich man cannot give more. Because just like, not only is there a rule right, you understand? You understand that's the test of the rich man? So Rabbi Yerucham says like this, not only is this the rule in physical wealth, but the lesson of the Machzeh Shekel is also a rule in spiritual wealth. Let's say a person's a great scholar and knows a lot of Torah. What's his Yetzer Hara going to say to him? Let's say he's wealthy in spirit. Right? What is every great rabbi's potential Yetzer Hara? Is that I'm better than everybody else. I know more Torah than everybody else. These guys don't know anything compared to what I know. And I'm going to make sure that they all know it. And the next lecture, I will bedazzle the crowd with 98 sources that I wouldn't have to look inside for. And I will give 73 different interpretations to a verse. People will be amazed. And they walk out and say, what did the rabbi say? I don't know what he said, but he was amazing. He was so amazing, I didn't understand a word he said. Right? And there are some rabbis like that they want to show everybody how much they know. And that's their Yetzer Hara. That's their Yetzer Hara. Now, a real rabbi doesn't do it. The rabbis just to speak to the audience, doesn't show. The great rabbis don't show what they know. But there would be a Yetzer Hara. You can understand what a great rabbi's Yetzer Hara would be. I'm going to impress them all, show them they know nothing. And that would be a Yetzer Hara. So, what Hashem, but really a real tzaddik is not like that. When Moshe Rabbeinu davens to Hashem that he should go to Eretz Yisrael, it says V'eschanan, he pleads to Hashem, and we know that tzaddikim, whenever they talk to Hashem, they say, you know what, even though I'm not deserving, please answer my prayers anyway. That's a real tzaddik. A real tzaddik, even though he is greater spiritually than others, he doesn't hold of himself that way. He doesn't demand anything because of that. That's what a real tzaddik should be. But there's a Yetzer Hara that will work on the spiritually wealthy people to be their undoing as well. So now it says in the Chovos HaLevavos, in the 10th source, he says, and when the evil inclination in the gate of dedicating our actions to Hashem, he gives you all the tricks of the Yetzer Hara. It's a great chapter to learn. Chapter 5 in wholehearted service to Hashem. He goes through all the tricks of the Yetzer Hara. So if after he fails in a number of them, when the evil inclination gives up hope from seducing you to push off your service to God, he can't get you to not do it. You're going to do the mitzvah. So what he's doing, he'll try to seduce you to act with arrogance, haughtiness, and say, etc., etc. In other words, it's proper for you to show them that you are standing on a much higher level than them. He'll get you to be arrogant. That's the next thing. If he can't stop you to do it, he'll do it, but he'll make you arrogant over them. So therefore, just like the rich man shouldn't lord over people with his wealth, so the spiritually rich man shouldn't lord over others and dominate them with their wealth that they have. So now that we understand that concept, okay, that's piece number one. We have to put one more piece in the puzzle, then we're going to be able to put this all together. But this is the real message of the Machzeh Shekel. No matter how great you are, don't try to show it. That's the real message of Machzeh Shekel. Physically or spiritually, don't push it. Don't try to show it. Point. Now, hold on to that point. We'll do one more point. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah, source 11. When Hashem came at Sinai, there's a verse in the book of Dvarim that says, oh, that they had such a heart. And what does the pasuk over there referring to? The Gemara says that when Hashem was giving the Gemara says at a later date that when Moshe was talking to Jewish people, he said to the Jews, you are ungrateful people, offspring of an ungrateful ancestor. He accused the Jews of being ungrateful people. And what happened exactly? And they were children of an ungrateful person. The original ungrateful person was first man. Hashem said, why did you eat forbidden fruit? He says, what do you want? It's my wife's fault. The one that you gave me is the one that made me eat it. See how ungrateful he was. What was the ingratitude of the Jewish people? They're also ungrateful. Because when Hashem was at Sinai with the Jewish people, Hashem made them an amazing offer, the Medrash says. Hashem says, who might grant that they should have a heart like this always? Hashem says, see this beautiful moment at Sinai? You feel so close to me. You understand that I'm the ultimate reality. You want to do everything for me. This is an amazing moment. Tomorrow you're going to go down the mountain. That moment's gone. I'm making you an offer. The offer is this moment, this feeling you'll have forever. This Kodak moment. This moment where the only thing you want to think about is me. And you want to do everything I want to do. And you think that's your only pleasure in this life. At this very moment, I can give you the power to feel this way all the time. You'll always be able to push off the Yetzer Hara. You know what? That was after the first 2 commandments. The Jews got blown away. They physically died. They had to be revived. And Hashem says, I only gave you 2. If you let me give you the next 8, it's going to blow you away again. But you'll never have a Yetzer Hara to do an Aveira again. You want it? The Jews said, no, I think it's better Moshe should give it to us. I think Moshe should give it to us. And that's what Hashem said, you ungrateful people. I gave you such an opportunity to do this. And they didn't want this. So the Maharshal commentary explains why did they do this. This is very similar to the sin of first man. He says that, if you're going to make us feel this spiritual forever, what kind of test will it be when the Yetzer Hara comes to us tomorrow? Tomorrow morning, the Yetzer Hara is going to tell us to sleep in, to not get up. We're going to say, you crazy idiot, you. We love Hashem, we're going to davening. Whenever the Yetzer Hara comes to us, we're going to blow him away. So now, we know the rule is, according to effort, so is the reward. We're not going to have any effort, so what's going to be the reward? So what they did was, they said, Hashem, thanks, but no thanks. We're happy that Moshe should give us the next 8. And if we're not going to be as powerfully spiritual, that's fine. Because it's good for us to work against the Yetzer Hara, to struggle with him, to fight him, and eventually to be... This is similar to Adam HaRishon's mistake of eating from the forbidden fruit. Hashem said the same thing. You're going to eat from the forbidden fruit, you'll ingest, that the Yetzer Hara will be part of you inside. It's going to be tough to deal with. Adam said, don't worry, I'll handle it. I want you to be proud of me. I will ingest this, I'll have a Yetzer Hara, I'll overcome the Yetzer Hara, and I'll be amazing. Their mistake was the same as Adam HaRishon. Their mistake was underestimating Hashem's offer. Because they thought only spiritual wimps would take such an offer. But spiritual giants don't. A spiritually strong person never has to ask anybody for help. Go to a physically rich man and ask him for help. Say, what do I need your help for? I'm not a rich man, I don't need your help. So spiritually the same thing. So just like we said that the rich man shouldn't give too much, that he shouldn't boast that he's different from somebody else, similarly, we can't let this fall into spiritual areas to say, I'm spiritually so great and I don't need any help from you either, Hashem. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said, for example, he says, I know I have the brains of 1,000 people, but I can't boast because I know what Hashem expects from a man with the brains of 1,000 people. And I know I haven't come close to fulfilling that. Right? A person has to realize they can have a lot of spiritual wealth and they can challenge themselves to do more, and maybe they shouldn't boast for this. So what happened? So the Jews, by rejecting God's offer, what were they doing? They thought they were amazing people. They didn't need any help. They were big enough to chart their own course in life. So then what happens when Moshe doesn't come back down from the mountain? They didn't realize what kind of Yetzer Hara Hashem was going to send them. Didn't realize how strong the Yetzer Hara is. So it says, you think you could do it on your own? Fine. Let's see. Let me just give you a few hour delay of Moshe Rabbeinu. Let's see how you guys can handle it. I'll have a picture of Moshe Rabbeinu dead in the bed, and he's gone, and let's see how well you handle that situation. And they fall apart. They fall apart. They mamish fall apart. And that's what it says in the duties of the heart, the last source. Anyone who puts their trust in anything other than Hashem, Hashem removes his supervision from him and leaves him in the hands of who he puts his trust in. If you think you have somebody better to trust than Hashem, says, okay, trust them. So you trust yourselves better than me helping you, so fine, do it. So what happened? They failed miserably. They fell miserably because of this boasting. When God says, I can make you be spiritually fit forever. You'll never be challenged by the Yetzer Hara. He says, we don't need your help. We're great. Great people don't need help. We already got out of Egypt. We've been working on ourselves for 49 days. We're really amazing people. We don't need any help. Hashem said, you ungrateful people, you don't even realize what I was offering. You think you're so amazing? I'm going to give you a test and see how that happens. And they blew it. So now we come back to the half-shekel coin. The whole point of spirituality is not to take those extra coins. Don't give those extra coins and turn them into tools of arrogance. Why does the rich man want to give 1,000 coins? To show that he's an arrogant guy. Don't give me that your arrogance when you're mitzvahs. So similarly, when Hashem says, I want to help you out spiritually, don't be so arrogant not to take something from me. Don't think you're going to offer me more than I want from you. I want you to take the Torah with my help, because then you'll be able to handle it. And you think you're so spiritually wealthy, you don't need any help? That's going to be your undoing. And that was exactly it. You see the connection between that and the half-shekel coin? The rich man thinks, I got to show everybody how great I am. And that's physically rich and spiritually rich. I have to show everybody how great I am. Become a big Baal Gaiva. Big arrogant person. Jews became so arrogant with themselves. Said, we don't need any help from you. We can handle anything. So what happens is, in their arrogance, they fall to the golden calf. So now we go back to the Gemara. That seems to say that God stacked the deck against them. Normally, we would not do this sin. How do we understand the Gemara? So the answer is, normally, a person who's a tzaddik, Hashem will give them something called siyata d'shmaya, divine help. Hashem always helps you. Especially if you're a tzaddik. If you're a tzaddik and you want to do what's good, and let's say a tzaddik goes into somebody's house and that we assume is a kosher home, and the tzaddik's always very careful. And it could be the person made a mistake and bought something with the wrong hechsher, without a hechsher, and the tzaddik doesn't know. Somehow she'll make sure that the person will burn that meal, and the tzaddik won't eat from it, because Hashem was going to help the tzaddik, because it really wants to get help from Hashem, and tries his best, and Hashem will always help. If you don't think you're strong enough, Hashem will help you. Hashem will help you. And it happens all the time. Hashem will always create that the situation isn't greater than what you can bear. Let's say you're having, parnos is a problem for you. Let's say your boss is going to fire you. And Hashem knows if your boss fires you straight out, you'll fall apart. You'll mamish fall apart. You'll give up Yiddishkeit. So Hashem will help you a little bit. You'll get fired, but He'll give you 8 months, severance. Oh, okay, 8 months severance. Okay, you can handle it. In other words, even though Hashem has to give you a test, but He's going to help you out a little bit. He always wants to help you out so you can make it. And Hashem is always there to help you. He's always there to help you. And with every test that He gives you the siyata d'shmaya, the divine ability to hang on. With every test, and it's always fair. It's a hard test, but there is Hashem's hand ready there for you to take it, to help you that you'll be able to survive the test. Hashem always gives you both at the same time. So what does the Gemara over here mean? The Gemara says that had God given them the average amount of assistance that everyone gets, the Jews would not have sinned. What happened? God took away the divine assistance. Wait a minute, that's not fair. Why did they take away the divine assistance? Oh, wait a minute, let's go back. When they're up at the mountain, Hashem says, I'm willing to give you help that you'll never fall to that Yetzer Hara again. And what did the Jews say? I don't want your help. Oh, you don't want my help? Then I won't give you my help. As the Chavos says, whatever you put your trust in, that's going to put your trust in. You put your trust in your wealth, you put your trust in this, so let's see what your wealth will do for you. And if you don't want me to help, if you think you're so smart you don't need Hashem's help, Hashem says, fine, I won't help you. If you put your trust in Hashem, Hashem will help you. Hashem's not vindictive. Hashem says, I'll give you exactly what you want. Whatever you want, the way you want it, I will give it to you. I'm telling you, the Yetzer Hara is a bad dude. Right? And you know what? You need my help. And I'll tell you how much help you need. This much help. But you think I'm a nobody, Hashem? I don't think you're a nobody, but I know you better than you think you know yourself. So I'm telling you, you need this much help to survive. So Hashem, I don't need your help. Okay. You don't want the help anymore. You don't want the help. You're on your own. And you'll show everybody how foolish you are when you go on your own. So then Hashem says, and then Hashem, wham! Does he give him such a zetz? So Hashem, you gave us more than we could handle. Wait a minute, before that I told you that I would help you. And you said you could take on anything. Okay, so I gave you anything. And you see how ungrateful you are. That's what the Gemara is saying. Hashem didn't stack the deck that they had to fail. Before he even brought the test, he said, I'm willing to give you supernal help. To take on anything I'll throw at you. Now, if God's offering you such a thing, a smart person will say, why is God offering me this help? Probably because it's going to be something that I won't be able to handle without his help. Right? Say, God, please, give it to me. Give me all that help. And the person says, no, I'm not a wimp. I give $1,000 for the machasisa shekel. I'm better than everybody else. I'm an outstandingly great. I want everyone to know how great I am. You know how great I am? I even refuse God's help. That's how great I am. And Hashem says, okay, you weren't worthy to do such a sin. You know, if I would have given you the average Yetzer Hara to do an Avera, they wouldn't have sinned after the golden calf. But he gave them a big Yetzer Hara to that Avera. It's not fair, he stacked the deck, but Hashem says, no, I gave you just enough. I gave you the opportunity to have my help. But you didn't ask for my help. You know, it's very interesting. This happens so much in life when we have to make decisions of what kind of schools to send our children to, what kind of neighborhoods to live in. You know, and we say, you know what? Our children will never be influenced by anything. And then people are begging you, why don't you send your kid to a little more religious school? What do you need a more religious school? Everything's fine. He says, you don't know what's going to be out there. I know, I went through high school, it was fine with me. People don't know that high school 20 years ago is like summer camp compared to what's going on now in schools. And they're offering you divine assistance. Send your kid to a better school where they're a little more religious. The worst that will ever happen. The worst thing you'd ever have, you send your kid to yeshiva. The worst thing is he'd be a rabbi. That'd be the worst thing that could happen. Right? The worst thing, maybe he won't make a lot of money. That'd be the absolute worst thing. Well, that usually doesn't happen anyway. They usually go up to be fine businessmen or professionals who also are very religious. So no, I don't need any help. Thank you, Rabbi, but no thanks. We have a very strong home. We make Kiddush Friday night. We're unbelievably strong. And then they wonder why, 10 years later, the boy comes home with, Georgina, Grace, or whoever. Comes in with Mary. So, I don't know, we gave him the best of everything. It was really hard. There was a lot of temptation out there, but didn't somebody offer to help you before? Because we think we're so arrogant to think that I can handle anything. If I would need someone's help, that shows I don't have a good Jewish home. It doesn't show anything. It shows you don't realize what the enemy out there is. You don't realize. Would you imagine 20 years ago what kind of schmutz is that your kid could have it in his hand from all over the world? And would you think about that ever could be? I didn't know they're going to have such things, that wherever he turns, he's going to see all these kinds of things. How was I to know? You didn't have to know that, but you have to know to take Hashem's hand when he was offering it to you. That's the problem. Hashem's door is always open, right? But you got to knock. Right? So why did God withdraw the divine protection? To teach every Jew that you can make the same silly mistake. Whenever any Jew sins, it's only because he didn't want Hashem's help. Because if you really want Hashem's help, there's no way you can ever fall. So that's what we learned from the story of the golden calf. That mistake that they made, David HaMelech, I don't have time to get into it, it's the same thing. David HaMelech, he said, Hashem, I want you to test me. Hashem said, I don't want to test you. You won't be able to make. He said, test me anyway. He said, I'm going to test you, but you're going to fail. He says, but do whatever. And he failed. Because it was an area that Hashem couldn't give him divine. It's another story I can't get into. But that's the same idea. So that's sin. We always have that problem. We always think we know better. We always think we're spiritually strong enough. I can do anything. It won't affect me. I don't have to daven. I don't have to set the alarm clock. You have to ask Hashem to help you all the time. If you ask Hashem to help. Now, when we do sin, it means we didn't ask for Hashem's help. So now you might think, I snubbed God. I didn't take His help. Now He'll never want me back. Hashem says, I will always take you back. Even if I told you not to do this, and I told you I would help you, I told you not to do this thing, and I told you I would help you, and you snubbed me and said, I don't need your help, and then you made a fool out of yourself, you can still come back. And that's the mistake we always make. When do we ever do an Avera? It's because we don't really want Hashem's help. Right? Did you have a question?
Yeah, the way I'd always learned it is that the reluctance to hear the rest of the affairs of Dibros was motivated by fear rather than Gaiva. That their souls had lost their body and they were terrified, and that's why they wanted...
No, but if Hashem is offering to give you more, who are you to reject it? Hashem, that's what the Medrash is saying. Hashem said, I will give you, will never sin again. So why would they want to take up that offer? So they didn't want to take up the offer because they felt it would take away from their schar. It's the same mistake that Amarishon made, the exact same mistake. Why? If Hashem says, if I do the next 8, trust me. Listen, you died twice. Who brought you back? Me. You don't think I'm going to bring you back again? I mean, what do you think? You'll do it 7 out of 8 times. But the 8th time you won't bring us back. It's not going to do that. Right. So obviously there was another, so they're saying they didn't want to be able to accomplish that. Right? So now let's get to Shabbos. So where does Shabbos fit in? I'll do this very quickly now. Why would a Jew think to desecrate the Shabbos in order to make the Mishkan? Why? You could think that Shabbos is great, but Hashem is greater. Meaning to say, quite often when there's a great opportunity comes your way, we're willing to sacrifice certain values and rationalize our moves by saying there's a greater cause. Right? A lot of times the old mistake, the ends justify the means. Sometimes we'll do something that's wrong, but there's a greater good that's going to come out of it. A guy is rushing to go to a shir. He's late for the class, so what does he do? He cuts in front of people in traffic. He almost gets 10 people in an accident, and he's going up the stairs. There's an old man coming up the stairs. He pushes the man to the side. What are you wasting my time? He goes up and he's the first one in the class. Why? Well, I have to be on time for the class. What are you talking about? And we justify anything in our minds because, what do you mean? I have to be at the class. All right, okay, he'll be fine. It's not a problem. Right? So what you have often, people will justify things if they think there's something greater to do.